So, Carl, today we're talking about just how awful social media can be, I guess. It's just deep dive straight into that pool.
Oh, okay. So we finally covering like Twitter or something?
We're not, because I don't want to touch X with a barge pole, because Elon's just gonna, I don't know, throw a tantrum and sue us or something, but we are talking about... we are talking about a movie that's based on another billionaire asshole. That would be Mark Zuckerberg, and we are talking about the movie The Social Network. So, Carl, you informed me that you have not seen this movie, is that correct?
I think I may have watched it in like university, but forgot almost everything about it except for the opening scene, which is one of like the most cathartic things ever. And can easily use the stand-in for all asshole guys, and is still relevant to this day. Of just Mark Zuckerberg or Jesse Eisenberg playing Mark Zuckerberg just getting reamed out by a girl.
And it's that lovely play on it, isn't it? Of just, you might think that this is happening because I'm a bitch. You might think it's because you're too good for me or too smart for me. Actually, I'm breaking up with you because you're an asshole.
You're gonna go through life thinking that girls don't like you because you're a nerd. And I want you to know from the bottom of my heart that that won't be true. It'll be because you're an asshole.
I remember, I think it was like my ex at the time just showed me that of like, have you seen like, so I think we were talking about just that kind of guy. And she said, oh, you need to watch this scene and remind me of its existence. Like, I remember this was so good.
I don't necessarily think it's the best film, but what it is a film starring a couple of, good actors and also directed by David Fincher.
And David Fincher, it's like just any film he touches is always going to be interesting because he's such a weirdo when it comes to his films. And I mean weirdo in the absolute nicest possible way of. He's just a weirdo obsessive, and as a result, his films are always just an interesting watch.
I want you to hit me as hard as you can.
What?
I want you to hit me as hard as you can.
In terms of just the way that this film is directed and shot, and the soundtrack for it as well is phenomenal. It's just, in those regards, in terms of the kind of the cinema of it all, it's David Fincher. It's going to be good.
Yeah, so that's the thing about David Fincher as well. Even when he's doing something bad like Alien 3, it's still interesting to watch because you know that even though he hated it, he still made sure, okay, but I'm going to be a weirdo perfectionist with every single detail, but I am going to say that this film ruined my life.
Yes, and that's the thing, right, is he might not like that project, but at the same time, he doesn't want to put out a piece of crap. He's proud of what he produces.
Exactly, yeah. Except for that, I think he really doesn't like Alien 3, but it's still an interesting movie because he made it. So he also did like Mindhunters, right? And then Netflix, like, you know what we should do? Let's cancel this. Let's cancel a David Fincher led series where he's got like universal critical acclaim.
That sounds like something that costs money, Carl. We don't like spending money, we like making money.
Yeah, but that's what cracks me up about it. It's just like, he wants to make it, it's universally critically acclaimed, and they're like, but nah, let's make Love Island instead. It's like, nah! It's the summer of love.
You know what, Carl? Love Island, probably quite cheap to make in comparison.
Do you know what I'd want to see direct Love Island? Fucking David Fincher.
Reality TV, but you take some weirdo auteur perfectionist like David Fincher and make him direct it and then just put it in charge. I do remember them talking about the initial scene that you were talking about earlier with the conversation where his girlfriend breaks up with him. And they were saying how much just... And I'm pretty sure like that was scripted out and rehearsed within like the second. And they knew every single little bit and just... the way that he'd crafted it together to make sure there was just no fat at all.
Yes.
And we did it 99 times. We didn't do it 100 times for some reason. He didn't want to do it one more time just to hit 100. But yeah, I loved it. Every time I've done a movie, I'm like, how are we only doing 6 takes of this?
Can you imagine, Carl, just a Wiki Weekends video, but directed and edited by David Fincher, where every single one of our lines is the most snappy, well thought out thing we can possibly say?
Yeah, and it reminds me a little bit of the Coen brothers. And there's a great interview with Jeff Bridges where he talks about how the thing about something like The Big Lebowski is all the dialogue seems so naturalistic. Literally, he was like, I hate improvising. And it seems so natural because every single naturalistic element to my speech, from my ums and my ahs and the little micro pauses that I do, are in the script. Because Joel and Ethan do not mess around when it comes to their scripting. And they're that good at it, it seems like improvised dialogue. And it's like, no, it's just really, really well scripted dialogue that comes across as improvised and naturalistic.
Yeah, there are quite a lot of situations like that where a lot of shows and films that feel as though they are naturalistic enough to be improv all of the time, and people assume that they are often.
Yes.
And then it turns out, no, that's all scripted, or most of it is scripted. And, for example, I know for shows with Arrested Development, for example, there are little bits and pieces that are improv and they lead into it, but for the most part, it's actually just, no, we meticulously scripted this all out because all those little details hidden in the background wouldn't work otherwise.
Who?
But Anne?
Yes.
Then we had...
Yes. Of course I know Anne. Yes, I didn't mean who. I meant, her? That's a great idea. I love Anne.
Great.
Excuse me, ma'am?
And I know, with Arrested Development, for example, we had that, the now lost video about it, because we lost it all, but one of the things we talked about in that is after they get through one of those very intricately crafted scenes, they would normally allow, okay, and now just 5 minutes of improv, just to see if anything better comes up. Because we have got a bunch of world-class comedians on here. It'd be stupid not to at least let them play around with the material and see if anything comes up.
Yeah, it was a bit of a mix, but a lot of people assume because of how naturalistic it can feel in its dialogue, as you say, is just, loads of it was improv, and it was basically all just them making it up as they go along. It's like, no, it wasn't. I believe it was David Cross that said when he went into Mitchell Hurwitz's office for season 4 being written, because it was done in such a weird way where each person had their own individual episode and it all had to link together. He just went into his office and every single wall was just covered with notes, and it was, the Always Sunny meme where it's Charlie.
I was just about to say, the Charlie with all the
strings,
the strings in the wall, because they had to somehow coordinate every single actor when they were all doing movies and stuff.
Jesus Christ, that right there is the mail. Now let's talk about the mail. Can we talk about the mail, please, Mac? I'm dying to talk about the mail with you all day, okay? Pepe Sylvia, this name keeps coming up over and over again. Every day, Pepe's mail's getting sent back to me. Pepe Sylvia, Pepe Sylvia. I look in the mail, well, this whole box is Pepe Sylvia!
I imagine David Fincher is the exact kind of person that probably has that all out, and it does sound like that because even such a simple thing as a conversation that lasts 3 minutes, it's, no, we need to nail down every single second of this 3-minute conversation, make sure that it's all shot over 6 different cameras so that we make sure we know exactly just, what moment we need to cut to a zoom in, what moment we need to cut to a wide shot, and all this jazz.
It's something, I forget which actor it was, I'll try and look them up while you do the intro, but they've just, I'll find the track as you go through.
I mentioned a second ago that we don't trim the fat necessarily in Wiki Weekends, and you've just used the phrase while you do the intro as we're 10 minutes into the recording. It's yeah. It's a bit more of a loosey-goosey style here. The Social Network is a 2010 American biographical drama film directed by David Fincher and written by Aaron Sorkin, based on the 2009 book The Accidental Billionaires by Ben Mesrick. And I believe Ben Mesrick was he the co-founder of Facebook who then got shafted out of all the money? Okay, yeah, Ben Mesrick is just the writer of The Accidental Billionaires, but I believe The Accidental Billionaires, which this is based on, was taken from the mind of Eduardo Luis Saverin, who was the co-founder of Facebook that got screwed out of Facebook.
I know, Mark Zuckerberg, for example, doesn't like the film.
Well, that's the thing, right?
And if he doesn't like the film, then you know it's probably an accurate portrayal, if not dramatised version.
I would presume it's very dramatised, but the fact that is written by his co-founder that was slighted by him, you can't exactly say that it's going to be a reliable narrator, right?
But at the same time, if it's directed by David Fincher, who I've brought up some quotes about his perfectionist tendencies here, you can trust that he did his bloody research. And I've just got a few quotes here about David Fincher, oddly enough from his Wikipedia page. And it mentions that he has autocratic tendencies and micromanages every single aspect of a film's production, to the chagrin of some and the praise of others. He is known for his perfectionism and meticulous eye for detail, performing thorough research when casting actors to ensure their suitability for their part. And an editor sitting in on the process with him refers to his process as like putting together a Swiss watch in terms of like the amount of detail and intricacy involved. It also mentions that he is known to demand a grueling series of takes to capture a scene perfectly, often requiring upwards of 50 takes for a scene. Some actors dislike this, stating that Fincher wants puppets, not actors who are creative, whereas other actors respect it because it's like, yeah. And a quote that I recall off the top of my head is, I forget which actor it was, but they were talking about, well, some directors just demand extra takes because it's an ego thing. When it's Fincher and you ask him what was wrong with seemingly two identical takes, he'll be able to walk you over to the camera and point out the mistakes and the subtle minutiae of the difference in your performance. And once he does that, you understand that he sees something other people don't. And you don't mind doing it because there is a difference there. He spotted it and you want to get the best performance out of you. Because that's ultimately what he wants.
The rehearsals were less about like rehearsing the scenes and or coming up with blocking or something like that. It was more about just like discussing the story as a whole, or I was interested to see how David was so focused on finding what was behind each word in the script and why it was there.
For anyone that is maybe forgetting what films David Fincher has made, he made his feature film debut with Alien 3, but then made Seven, The Game, Fight Club, Panic Room, Zodiac, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, Gone Girl, and The Killer, and has gained nominations for the Academy Award for Best Director, for The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, The Social Network, and Mank. When you've got
that
a list of films that
filmography,
are just that insane, you should probably listen to David Fincher. And I get that some actors might be frustrated with his process, but clearly it's a process that makes good movies.
So I think the only knock you could have on here is that you directed Alien 3. But you say, yeah, but I also directed Mindhunters. Like, shit, he did direct Mindhunters. And House of Cards. It's like, oh, fuck, he also did House of Cards as well, dude. Damn it. And Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. It's like, oh, fuck, he did that. Did you do that one? Yeah, he did. Oh, no.
It's hard to argue with that list of movies. And maybe I can understand if it was one of his earlier films, but every notch that he gains on that belt, you have to just trust him more and more, right?
Yeah.
It didn't feel like a frat party. It didn't feel fun. But there was the guy at the end of the row who had to puke up, and that was constantly funny. Even after David's 150th take, that was still an Aaron Sorkin gem.
Yeah, it's one of those weird things where this movie might not necessarily sound interesting to a lot of people of just, oh, it's a story about Facebook. It's really got nothing to do with Facebook, really. It's more about the drama and the stories around the inception of Facebook.
Yeah, and I am aware that it has excellent sound design, because it's one of those like often overlooked aspects of filmmaking that David Fincher obviously sits in on. Do you think we should probably just done the Wiki Weekend on David Fincher?
I mean, we should at one point. But yeah, it says The Social Network has maintained a strong reputation since its initial release. It is often ranked by critics as one of the best films of the 2010s and the 21st century. The Writers Guild of America ranks Sorkin's screenplay the third greatest of the 21st century.
So not bad. There's only two more movies better than it.
Not at all. And I love this. It's like, while no official sequel has been announced, Sorkin publicly expressed interest and willingness to write a screenplay for one should Fincher return to direct. It's like, but then it's just a story about Facebook.
Do you know what I want? I want them to do a sequel, but it's set in like 2030. And I want Mark Zuckerberg to start shitting himself. So I want to make it like, oh yeah, Mark Zuckerberg, guy, his plane crashed. And then a zombie attacked him. And because it's David Fincher directing it again, it's like, what does he know that I don't?
It would be interesting to assemble the squad of different Mark Zuckerbergs. If You've got the one where he's trying to act like not a robot with the barbecue sauce behind him. You've got the one where he was going on his little surfing trip and he looked like a ghost.
What's your favourite Mark Zuckerberg? Is it like robot Mark Zuckerberg in front of Congress, where he looks like Data from Star Trek?
I think maybe my new favourite one is where they try to rebrand him. And it was that, like, oh, look how better Mark Zuckerberg looks. And it's, oh no, that was an AI-generated image.
Oh, they gave him like a beard and hair.
When they gave him the better hair and then the nice beard and like the cool chain and everything, it's like, oh no, that was just AI modified to change how Mark Zuckerberg looks.
I liked it when like they unveiled his waxwork figure and it looked more human than he did. Because it's like the rumour is he's a fucking robot or like a lizard person.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I just love those things people say, I swear down once. I saw him blink sideways. I know it's not true, it's just funny to, like, you know, spread that rumour because you know it annoys him.
To build up that mythos.
He probably doesn't mind people referring to him as an eccentric billionaire, but when you call him a weirdo, he probably doesn't like that.
Yeah, and it is funny to see, you know, obviously we referred to Elon earlier, and you've got that meme of just the weirdo Elon fan, like, diving in the way of the gun every time. It's like, he's a fucking creepo billionaire. You can let him get called at one on the internet.
I still think they should have fought, because it would have been really great to see Mark Zuckerberg just tear Elon Musk apart with his bare hands, rip, like, hold up just like his internal organs and scream into the sky, I am Facebook.
That's the thing, right, is obviously Elon just chats a bunch of shit, but then you saw that image of just Mark Zuckerberg. Oh no, I've got a trainer, I've been working out and learning Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, let's fucking go. And it's
just the picture of, like,
he's gonna get
Lucas,
killed.
on screen, here's the picture of Mark Zuckerberg with his shirt off, here's the picture of Elon Musk with his shirt off, which I've seen described as, he looks like he's built like a deep breath. Which is just like, yeah, it would have been so good to just see the dickhead bully of the internet pick on the quiet kid of the internet and just really start to regret it. Because you saw him, he was sweating in real time, wasn't he? Of like, no, I'm not going to do it. No, it's not going to be a fair fight because I'm too big. And it's like, and Mark Zuckerberg's like, I don't care. Weight classes don't mean anything to a robot.
That's the thing, right? Because you know that Elon would have got in the ring and just already been out of breath, and then the army of different Mark Zuckerberg robots would just appear from every angle.
It'd be like Felicia's super move in Ultimate Marvel, where it's like, everybody help! It's just the army of Mark Zuckerbergs.
Everybody help!
First attack!
The stampede of Yoshis from Smash Ultimate.
Yeah, just all running in. It's like, I am Facebook. He's just one of those people where you want to see someone punch him in the face.
Oh god, yeah.
Because you know he'd shut the fuck up so fast if he did that.
Mm-hmm. And we talked earlier about how good the sound design and the score of this movie are. And this movie had an award-winning score. And do you have any recollection of who made the score?
I do know who it is, because it's one of those people that, again, a fascinating career. It was Trent Reznor, right?
Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross of Nine Inch Nails fame. Yes.
Because this is the thing, I think Trent Reznor's better known for doing soundtracks than he is for Nine Inch Nails now. Because he also did the soundtracks like Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. Trent Reznor's another guy with a really eclectic, but also super fucking stacked resume.
If people are unaware of his career, people see Trent Reznor's making the score. It's like, what, the Nine Inch Nails guy? It's like, no, the multi-award-winning score writer, Trent Reznor.
Yeah. For example, he provided a score for 1 Hour Photo, which is fantastic. Girl with the Dragon Tattoo.
Working with David Fincher again.
Again, yeah. The Girl Who Played with Fire, The Girl in the Spiderweb. He also did a score for the miniseries version of Watchmen, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles show.
Excellent.
And the next Tron movie.
Yeah, that was the one that they recently got announced for. I knew there was something. That sounds awesome. Trent Reznor making a Tron score sounds cool as fuck.
It does indeed, right?
Mm-hmm. It is very funny when I scroll down to the cast of this movie, which is a pretty good cast, and just seeing a picture of, Jesse Eisenberg portrays Mark Zuckerberg, and just seeing the picture of Mark Zuckerberg there gets me.
No soul. No soul in those eyes.
It's just a regular picture of him probably presenting on stage or something, but he just looks like a weird robot lizard man.
It's like bro thinks he is Steve Jobs.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Even Steve Jobs was a fucking weirdo. Like, do you ever like Steve Jobs, like, legit thought because he ate a lot of fruit he didn't need to wear deodorant?
Ooh.
And when he worked at like, Atari, they made him work the night shift because he just smelled the poo. It's just the fact, like, just the someone come on, yeah, you work the night shift. So, like, he stunk of shit.
Right.
He didn't wipe his ass properly and he smelled like poo, so no one wanted to work with him. And it's just the idea of, like, the guy, Steve Jobs, smelled like poo.
Maybe that's a video that we can make one day.
That's a fact-themed video right there, and Steve Jobs smelled like poo.
It always fascinates me as well of just, obviously he made a lot of money from Apple, but the fact that, the actual thing that Steve Jobs made his money off initially was Pixar.
Yeah.
Just taking a bet on that. We'll go to the casting of the movie, as I said, and just, it's got a pretty good cast. It's got Jesse Eisenberg as Mark Zuckerberg, Andrew Garfield as Eduardo Saverin, Justin Timberlake as Sean Parker, and Justin Timberlake does do a decent job in this movie, admittedly.
Remember when Justin Timberlake tried to be an actor?
Mm-hmm. Do you remember In Time?
See, In Time was really great, but it's one of those movies that people watch and think, because they get the message, that the message must be really deep, and it's like, no, it's so obviously an allegory for capitalism.
Just want something to wake up with more time on my hand than hours in the day.
In Time is one of those fascinating movies where a clip of it that I saw on TikTok made me super interested in the premise.
Which was?
And I just saw a clip of the film.
Yeah,
someone
the clip?
I can't even remember. It was just the idea of the whole, you have a limited amount of time, but you can get your time added onto your wrist or whatever.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, cool, this is a really interesting premise. And the moment I looked it up and everyone's like, oh, God, what a terrible fucking movie In Time was.
It's because it beats you over the head with its message of like, oh, yes, it's a world where they don't have currency. It's time is your currency. And everyone who lives in the poor district only has, on average, about 1 day. Do you get it, Lucas? They're literally living day to day.
Mm-hmm.
And then Justin Timberlake gets gifted more time. And then the people who have more time don't want him to come to their community, because he belongs with the poorer folk who have less time. Do you get it? Now imagine that stretched out over 2 hours. And the only thing I'll say, it has one of the best just like line reads of where like Justin Timberlake goes to the rich part of town and he's just sitting having a fancy meal. And a lady comes up and goes, "You're not from here, are you?" He goes, "How can you tell?" He goes, "Well, you're doing everything so fast." So he's used to literally having a day of time.
Yeah.
He just looks her in the eye and goes, "Not everything." And it's like, oh, good. It's such a good chattel line.
You do everything a little too fast.
Not everything.
And if anyone's trying to think where they could place the name Sean Parker, that is the person who invented Napster.
Oh, that dude. Good for him.
Yes. It's that weird thing of he's the skeezy kind of tech dude that made a load of money off Napster that's trying to lead Mark Zuckerberg down like the dark asshole path, while Eduardo, while he's away in different places like college and stuff, he starts to lose a grip on Facebook and kind of gets pushed out of it. And it's one of those scenes where I see get shared a lot of when Andrew Garfield comes into the party and he signs a like contract that he shouldn't have signed because he basically gave away all of his shares by accident.
But it does say here, I've just clicked on his Facebook profile, that Eduardo Saverin is worth $26.3 billion and is the world's richest Brazilian. I think he's doing all right.
That's the thing. He's doing fine. He's not living on the streets. Right? He's not got 1 day left to live like Justin Timberlake did. It's just that line in the movie. They were like, well, you should have had your lawyers look over the contract. Why didn't you get someone to look over it? It's like, I thought you guys were my lawyers. Like, nah, man, we're the lawyers for Facebook trying to get rid of you because Mark told us to.
Yeah.
It was insanely stupid of me not to have my own lawyers look over all the... In all honesty, I thought they were my lawyers. I was your only friend. Yet one friend.
He's portrayed very well by Andrew Garfield, and he's portrayed in that light of like, oh, poor Eduardo got pushed out of the company, and because it was basically written from Eduardo's perspective, that it didn't necessarily all go that way. He wasn't necessarily the good guy who did nothing wrong, who just got pushed out.
Yeah, it's also as well, he's a fucking billionaire, he's not hurting.
No, exactly.
It's like, oh no, the billionaire doesn't have as many billions as he could have had. Oh no, woe is me.
Mm-hmm. And then another notable cast member is Armie Hammer as Cameron and Tyler Winklevoss.
Oh yeah, because I remember that of like, oh, they're twins, right? So he's going to get one dude to play both twins, and it's fine. And I still think it was done better when Tom Hardy played both Cray brothers, or both Cray twins.
Yeah.
Because there was a rumor that he was going to get award, or he was going to get nominated for Best Supporting Actor and Best Actor for the same movie, and I was like, oh, I kind of wish he'd done that, because it would have been really interesting for him to get both of those awards for essentially playing them at the same role.
Hello, Ron. Cheers, mate. Fuck you!
What are you shouting at me
Because you had the world on a string, yeah? But you couldn't hold it together, so you fucked it up!
And the movie did do a lot of kind of invisible VFX, so to speak, they did a really good job of convincingly painting in Armie twice into scenes. Like, there's one where it talks here about, like, the rowing production, where just they had to get a rowing boat set up in this big, giant blue screen room, and then have all of, the lights and the cameras on Armie's face to be able to just digitally recreate him on a second person.
Mm-hmm.
You would never ever notice those effects in the film themselves. They were done that well, and just, that's a movie with a lot of VFX shots. It is, but you would never notice because they did it so well.
As well, David Fincher is such a weirdo perfectionist that if there was a mistake, he'd probably be sat there like, fix it.
The plot for the movie is just one of those where, obviously important, and I would recommend to just go watch the movie itself if you haven't already, but it is essentially just the story of how Mark Zuckerberg and Eduardo, they started up this website called, like, Face Mash, and it was just, they got a bunch of female students from different house Facebooks and started just using it as this pissy little way to just vote on which woman was hotter in the campus.
Yeah, 'cause the thing as well, when I look at Mark Zuckerberg, I think that's the kind of guy who should be judging how hot women are.
And that's the entire point. This is why his girlfriend dumped him, is just because he's an asshole. And then while he's sitting there just stewing in his room, he's like, well, you know what? She wasn't that special. I'm going to go, and just, he goes onto this little rant where he just decides to go and rank all these different women and then start spreading it around the campus and stuff. And that's how Facebook kicks off.
Erica Albright's a bitch. Do you think that's because her family changed their name from Albrecht? Or do you think it's because all BU girls are bitches?
Obviously, that turns into an actual social media website, and then it's all about how you've got the push and pull between Eduardo trying to make Facebook with him, but then Sean Parker trying to edge his way in and make it this big, massive, website worth billions, and how Eduardo then gets pushed out and stuff. And then you also have the Winklevoss twins trying to claim that he stole the idea for Facebook from them, and all of the different ways that like everybody is suing everybody in this movie by the end of it.
Yeah, and I noticed like the one person who wasn't sued was one David Fincher, because I know that Mark Zuckerberg's like, well, the film's not accurate, but then he never like, what parts are accurate, Matt? I don't want to talk about it.
That's the thing. It's hard to really sue David Fincher for being a director or the production of this movie, because if anything, you'd be suing the people that made the book that this film is based on already, right?
Which presumably is already sued.
Yeah. The book is out there. That story is out there. You can't really do much about the fact they're making a film adaptation of it. It's just, otherwise you'd need to have gotten the entire book, like, sued into the depths of hell, right? And just never to be read again.
And the fact that he hasn't been able to do that would suggest that there's some elements to it that are accurate, right?
Yeah, there's definitely little bits where they, I'm sure, play with the truth, but at the same time, it's close enough to represent the story of what happened where he can't get it taken down.
Just that thing is of like, okay, what parts are accurate? Because then if people aren't familiar, like one of the things that would happen in a case like this is that enter what's known as discovery, which allows, because the only way to prove that it's libelous is to grant the people you're suing access to personal or historical records, because that's the only way they're going to know for sure that it's not accurate. And I'm guessing Mark Zuckerberg would not like to open himself up to that kind of scrutiny.
Exactly, yeah. It's just, okay, Mark, what isn't true in this? And prove it. He's like,
just activating death ray. What?
Well, he made me out to be way more of an asshole than I actually am. It's like, okay, but that's subjective.
And that's one of my favourite things about libel. Of like, okay, I can't call Mark Zuckerberg and just say like, I don't know, we kicked his dog. Like I say, he's the kind of guy who I think would kick his dog.
Because that's just opinion, right? At that point, you're not saying it's fact; it's just opinion.
I can call him a soulless robot.
Yeah, we can say that he looks like a lizard robot man, and that's just what we think. That's not something we're saying is true.
He's well within his rights to be annoyed about that, and he probably could come to my house and beat me up. Which is the most scary thing, is like, he could beat me up, and he probably knows where I live.
And as I say, I don't think the plot is necessarily that important to talk about in terms of for the Wiki Weekends video. Just know that it's a pretty thin plot, but still made into a great movie by both Aaron Sorkin and David Fincher, just knowing exactly what they're doing.
Yes.
You don't think I deserve your attention?
I think if your clients want to sit on my shoulders and call themselves tall, they have a right to give it a try, but there's no requirement that I enjoy sitting here listening to people lie. You have part of my attention. You have the minimum amount.
And speaking of Aaron Sorkin, he said, what attracted me to the film is that it had nothing to do with Facebook. The invention itself is as modern as it gets, but the story is as old as storytelling. The themes of friendship, loyalty, jealousy, class, and power. He said he read an unfinished draft of The Accidental Billionaires when the publisher began shopping it around for a film adaptation, and Sorkin added, I was reading it and somewhere on page 3 I said yes. It was the fastest I said yes to anything. They wanted me to start right away. Ben and I were kind of doing our research at the time, sort of along parallel lines. But yeah, it's just really interesting that Aaron Sorkin's like, I don't really give a crap about Facebook, but goddamn, I want to be the one to write this screenplay because, as he said, it just has all the right themes in it of just, it's all about interpersonal relationships and everybody just being jealous of one another and trying to grab power from one another.
Yeah.
And ultimately, that's why I think the ins and outs of the plot aren't necessarily that important. What is important is the themes and how it is like written and directed and portrayed.
And what was also important is that Mark Zuckerberg is an alien robot.
No, we think he's an alien robot, Carl. Remember. It's a fascinating movie to me because of how well everything comes together and how talented everyone is on the production side of it.
Yes.
So it just makes a fascinating film to watch, even if you don't think the premise sounds that interesting.
Well, that's like the whole thing like Mindhunters, right? Of like, everyone's like, well, technically it's about serial killers, but really it's about the people trained to catch the serial killers. It's like, okay, so how can that be interesting? It's like, fucking watch it. And they get real mad when you realise that it didn't get continued because Netflix is like, no.
That costs money, and you know what doesn't cost as much money? Reality TV.
Yep.
We can far out 10 seasons of these different reality TV shows with the same amount of money that it takes to make one season of that.
Yeah, God, I'm so mad about Mindhunters. It was such a good show.
But yeah, I wanted to talk about this because I remember it just popping up not long ago and me going, yeah, I remember liking The Social Network at the time. Let's give it a rewatch and see if it holds up. And it really does. Again, I can't really sell people enough on the movie in terms of just, even though it sounds like it's not a very interesting premise, it's a very interesting movie.
That's the thing, yeah. It's like you're just watching an absolute masterclass in direction, right?
Mm-hmm. In direction and screenwriting and score and acting. It just all comes together really well. Plus, you get to see many, many people call fictional Mark Zuckerberg a fucking asshole.
And the fact that you know that he didn't like the film is what makes it funny.
That's the best thing, is just, you know, that he was seething. He's sitting on his throne of just billions of dollars as he's just really fucking annoyed that this movie exists.
And that's one of the things that people point out, isn't it? It's like Elon Musk. It's like, you're a billionaire, but you can't get people to like you.
Mm-hmm.
Like the guy who spent billions. Like one of my favourite stories about him is Nathan Fielder. Who's like, yeah, Elon Musk tried for years to appear on my show, and I was invited to like every single one of the parties that he threw. And every time I'd go, I had to learn to start avoiding him because he'd come over and keep suggesting, like, Joe, it would be really funny if me and you appeared in a skit together. And Nathan Fielder's like, he's so desperate for people to find him funny.
Remember that time that you went onto SNL and thought it'd be funny to be Wario?
People are so mean online.
Just remember when he got his ass like handed to him by the hard drive on Twitter? He got ratioed so hard by the hard drive of like when he was moaning about SNL not being funny, and they just quote tweeted it with this picture of like the Wario one. I'm like, well, you know something about SNL not being funny, and it's like one of the biggest ratios in the history of Twitter. And then he bought Twitter. Like people are legit convinced that he bought Twitter because he was sick of getting ratioed.
No, Carl. It's because it's all part of his very thought out, very clever plan to somehow turn that company into like something that makes no money.
The only thing you need to say about Twitter and like Elon Musk's leadership of it is me could take it over tomorrow and I could double the value of the company by just announcing I'm going to undo everything he's done. Just say every decision that's been made by the previous leadership is now undone. Mm-hmm. You would double the stock price in a day.
What's really impressive is that he's not just tanking Twitter, is that he's tanking all the other companies he's invested in around. Like, he's pulling money out of all of them, destroying them to try and uphold Twitter, while he's also burning down Twitter.
He's so desperate for people to find him funny and interesting.
He really is. And if you found this video funny and interesting, then let us know in the comments just how much you think it's hilarious that neither of those billionaires can make themselves any friends.
So at least with like Mark Zuckerberg, he looks like he's enjoying life. Like, he looks like a fucking robot, but when you see him like on that surfboard, he does look like he's having fun, and he's got a wife who loves him and kids and a dog.
Yeah.
But when it's Elon Musk, he's always alone, he's always screaming. Remember when like Elon Musk tweeted out that he couldn't get laid, and then he deleted the tweet because a bunch of his like weird male fans are like, I'll suck your dick if you want.
He's like, this is not the answer I wanted.
Just the fact that the richest man on earth can't get fucking laid. It's like, how repulsive a human being is he?
Well, I mean, he did manage to have a kid with Grimes, right?
And then he never sees that kid.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And also, speaking of his kids, he can just go fuck himself because he basically just abandoned his kid the moment they said they were trans, and has decided to like double and triple down on all that. And it's like, no, trans rights are human rights. Go fuck yourself, Elon.
Well, is that joke people keep making about it, isn't it? Of a man who refuses to acknowledge his daughter's pronouns gets annoyed when people dead name Twitter.
But thank you all for going on this journey with us, and I hope everyone has a lovely day. Thank you all.
Cheers.